Okay guys, I almost forgot to do this video. Let me see which cut this is. I think it's the fourth. Sorry, I finished this late last night and I was too tired to do the video. So I have to reboot the old memory and see what's up. Actually, I was too tired to do video, but I wasn't too tired to do some changes in the bowl that I wanted to do. So it is not exactly the way it was when it was floated. You can see I actually hit part of that throat with the burr and took a little bit of that blue off. But it's not the end of the world. It was the fourth cut. It was the first one with a 202. I am not thrilled with the inserts. See if you guys can see where that lays on that valve. That's about 32 thousandths overhang till the edge of the valve. It's more than I would like. Part of me wants to cut the valves down a little bit, but they are smaller stem valves, and the chance of me damaging a valve is pretty good. So I don't know if I really want to do that. I think I may do some more work in the chamber and see if I can get it to come back to life. As it was, when I cut the valve seats, the inserts were incredibly hard, and my stones were having none of it. It was a battle. So I left the throats tight, and anytime that I have to use inserts, I like to keep the inserts as thick as possible so they have more of a press fit. So the throat ratio on the intake right now is 82. The throat ratio on the exhaust is 84. Both of those are going to get a little bit opened up. That's why you can see I was doing some work inside the bowl. I think I'm going to leave this inside edge a little thicker, just to a little more cracking resistance. Even if we lose a few CFM, I think it's probably worth it. The owner of the Chinese Magnum heads said A-OK for the chamber mod, but I don't want to do that right away. I want to see what I can get out of it with the stock chamber and the stock floor on the short side radius. As of right now, let's take I'm going to show you the valve first. Okay, he did get SI valves. They make a nice valve. I've used them before. The only thing I noticed that was a little strange, let me grab another valve. Okay, these were both lapped on two separate seats, so they're not going to be identical. But I did notice how the back cut was a little bit smaller on this valve than it is on this valve. I haven't seen that before on an SI valve. Now, I don't know whether that was just I only opened two valves out of the pack. Is it a big deal? Not really. It does cause a little bit of a problem because the seat that's inside the head, I think I measured it as 1.97 inches. Doesn't really cover the 202 like I want it to. Okay. It's not horrendous, but it's not what my OCD wants it to be. The exhaust valve is a nice design. Basically, that could be put right in. I'm not even worried about it. It really looks pretty good. Face design's got some dirt on it because I've been fiddling with it. All right, harder to see with the liquid because I started cutting on it, but it was a step up above the 1.92, I believe. I got some nice coverage on the Dicam. You can see we've gotten more around this part of the chamber, right? Because what happens is you put a bigger valve in, this side gets tighter. So it's more and more shrouded. So it's going to change the velocity through there. And you got some speckling around the chamber. Not great, but not bad. And our bore is a little sparse. But that's okay. It's not done. Okay, this really isn't any different than you've seen it last time, except that it has a bigger valve on it, which did change the angle of our liquid flow a little bit. So far, the feeling I get on these Chinese EQ Magnums is basically the same feeling I had doing the Chinese Vortec Magnums. All right, I did the New Zealand Vortec before, and it cleaned up really easily, and made 275 intake and 200 on the exhaust first cut. And no measuring, no nothing. Okay, I did that for Marvin a while back, and basically I'm seeing the same thing with the New Zealand Magnum versus this Chinese Magnum. This Chinese Magnum takes a lot more work, a lot more grinding, and it's still down 18 CFM. I do, yeah, we have tight throat ratios, but when I open the throat ratios, I don't think it's going to make that big a difference. We'll probably peak out a touch better. The short side is definitely going to need some work because I picked up 7 CFM by putting a flow ball right on that vane on that roof. So I still have to decide whether I'm taking that vane out. I'd like to see what I can get with it in first. But yeah, the short side is going to need the same kind of work that I did to the regular Magnums. Okay, as far as the short side, we can see we got a little action on the floor. Got a lot on that wall because the bolt boss hasn't been taken all the way out yet. I do have to do some measuring before I take that wall out anymore. But it has been taken out quite a bit. I shouldn't say quite a bit. It was taken out a decent amount. Okay, but according to my airspeeds across the short side is pretty good right now. The more I take that out, the more it's going to change our airspeed differential across that short side. So you need to worry about that. The exhaust is exactly the same, but it's flowed with a different valve. So we'll see if that makes any difference whatsoever. Okay, guys, third cut. I did some work to it. Still 192. Now what we did is we changed to the bigger valve, and let's see what happens. Basically the same thing that happens usually when I put a bigger valve in, right? We gain more meat. Higher flow is in the meat of the curve, but it doesn't necessarily top out any better, which is exactly what we got this time, right? We got a minus, we got a plus, 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 plus. And at 500, we already see a B. That's buffering. It's going, the short side is attached, and then it's separating, and it's not attached, and it goes back and forth, and your manometer will bounce all over the place, so it's difficult to even get an accurate reading at that point. But in reality, it's already lost it, so it needs work to the short side at that point. That's where I put the flow ball on. You cause turbulence on the short side, helps it to reattach. You get it, and it increases in CFM. You know right then and there what's going on and what you need to do. Okay? And with the different valve, I was able to get up to 800 lift. Okay, I don't have anything to say about that. Let's go see our swirl. Our swirl actually went up almost all of the curve. I got 2 minuses. Okay? Which is counterintuitive as far as I'm thinking. Right? Because the bigger valve is shrouded more, it would be harder to get air on the shrouded part of the chamber, which is really going to increase your swirl numbers. So that I wouldn't have expected that kind of curve. Okay? Okay, let's do our airspeeds and see, because the bigger valve is going to radically change your airspeeds in the port. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so those are what our airspeeds were, and this is what we've got on your pinch, plus, minus, minus. It is nice and even top to bottom, but as soon as we do some work to the short side radius, that'll radically change. So I wouldn't hold too much validity in that. That's what we had on the roof. The roof was pretty good with the smaller valve, pretty close. Okay, we have a huge discrepancy now. Gee guys, why do you think the airspeeds changed so radically on the roof? I wonder if it has anything to do with the valve being closer to the cylinder wall bore and a little more shrouded. I don't know. You let me know. I think we're on the right path there. And as far as speeds across the short side, that's what we had. This is what we got. We got 2 pluses and 1 minus. We're not too far from being similar speeds across it. Not quite as good as that. That was better. That was better. See, look how close those speeds were. Okay? And it's interesting where it's fast, right? Okay, let's move on to the exhaust. Okay, as far as the valve, the exhaust valve shape, you can notice a couple things, right? The stock Magnum is tuliped, and the SI is more of a flat design. You can see it has, instead of the tulip being straight here, it's just balanced. It's got more of a curve to it, okay? That's going to make a bit of a difference how it flows, and it's also been necked down a little bit. So this has got a thicker stem where the two pieces have been welded together, and this is one piece, so it doesn't have that weld. So you would think the SI would flow circles around the stocker. Let's take a look. Okay, third cut stocker, same port, SI valve. How'd we do? We got a minus, you got a minus, you got a minus. We got noise, we got noise, we got noise, we got noise. We started to gain though here. Okay, plus, plus, minus, plus, plus, plus. And the pluses aren't big. Okay, it's not that big a difference. Okay, I think the biggest difference is we got 114 here, we got 109.5. All right, and the losses aren't big either. They're relatively small, so it didn't change much. We topped out at 223 with an 1 7/8 pipe. We topped out at 226.3 with an 1 7/8 pipe. In reality, the exhaust is way good compared to the intake. So I think the only thing I'm going to do to the exhaust is I'm going to open up the throat a touch, and we'll retest that. Basically, I'm going to open up the throat on the intake too and test that. So we'll do, next test will be change in throat ratio and see what happens. But let's take a look at our air speeds. This is where we were. Let me pause you. Okay, so these are our numbers with the Magnum valve. These are our numbers with the SI valve. It's very interesting because they're both done at 0.6 inch lift. The SI valve doesn't look nearly as good according to the pluses and minuses. But at 0.6, we're at 190.7 here. We're at 194.2, a couple CFM difference. But according to the air speeds, the port is happier with the Magnum valve, right? Interesting. Interesting, 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 guys. We're good as far as across the port. Not bad. This was better. So, we're going to change the throat ratio and then recalculate and see what we got to do at that point. Remember, there's tons of metal on that exhaust port, but it's already too good for the intake port as far as I'm concerned. Okay? I mean, we're topping out. I don't even know if I went over this. It's so whacked out. 300, we were 198, which was a step in the right direction, right? It went up. But we only topped out at 251. Not nearly what we need to do. This customer is going to send me a 340 Victor Jr., I think. So that will certainly help, because if you take a port that already is hurting and put it on a dual plane, it's really going to get knocked back. But it'll be an interesting comparison. I got the valves in for the New Zealand Magnums and the Chinese Magnums at the same time. So we can, I'm going to be doing, I have to do all the other whole head on the Chinese Magnum as far as valve job, which is no small thing with stones because those hardened seats are ridiculous. And then I can start on the New Zealands, putting those bigger valves in. I think those are already good. They're flowing like 267 on the intake. Those are going to pick up really, really well. And then we're going to choke it with the Performer RPM. But it'll be interesting to see once we improve the cylinder head flow how much the manifold picks back up. All right, guys, I got to get busy. It's already like 7:30 in the morning, and I got almost nothing done, so I got to get rolling. All right, guys, thanks for hanging out. Have a good night.